Want to add a special effect to your screen printing projects? Foil is a great way to get a unique effect.
Hey, it's Jennifer with Pigskins and Pigtails. Today I'm going to share details on how to add foil to your screen printing with vinyl process. If you're not familiar with how I use a vinyl cutting machine to screen print, be sure to watch my beginner tutorial linked above. Typically, I teach how to screen print using water-based ink, like Speedball ink. I prefer this in my home craft room because it's very easy to clean up. I do a lot of small run projects and having a quick cleanup process is important to me. However, to do foil, we need to use a Plastisol ink. Plastisol is commonly used in big screen printing shops. The benefit to Plastisol ink is that it does not air dry. If you're printing 1,000 shirts, you can print some today, leave the ink on your screen, and then start printing again tomorrow. The Plastisol ink won't dry out on your screen. It will only cure when it's heated. The downside to using Plastisol ink is that it is harder to clean out of your screen, in my opinion. I'll share more about that later in the video, but just keep in mind we're working with a different type of ink for this project.
I'm going to be using my screen printing press. This is my 4-color press, and I'm using this because I want to use my Speedball frames for this project. I'm going to show you a cleanup hack at the end of this video, and you'll see why I'm using these frames. I have my vinyl design on the screen, and before we start, I want to show you the distance of my frame from the shirt. See this gap? The spacing is good at the bottom, but I need a little more space at the top of the screen to make it even. My little hack for this is to use some poker chips taped under the frame to even out my frame. Adding this distance between your screen and your shirt is going to be really helpful because we are using a Plastisol stretch ink, which I will link in the description. This ink is really thick, much different than the water-based ink I typically use. Another tip for this process is to use a firm blade squeegee. This is a 70 durometer squeegee and it works really well to pull this thick ink over the screen. See how the screen pops back up from the shirt? With this kind of ink, that extra space is going to give you a better print than having the screen flat on the shirt. Once I've printed the design, I'm going to immediately grab my heat gun and dry the ink. You can also use a flash dryer for this if you have one, but a heat gun is less than $30 and a great alternative for home crafters. As the heat is applied, you can see a slight change in the ink. Now I'm going to take this shirt to my heat press. I'm going to grab a roll of foil and cut a sheet that is larger than the size of my screen printed design. Place that over the screen print and make sure you have the entire design covered. I've got my heat press set to 350 degrees and we are going to press for 15 seconds. I like to grab a shirt or a towel and press the foil into the shirt when it's still hot. This is a cold peel, so we need to make sure it cools down completely. With the foil cool, it's time for the reveal. Just grab the corner of your foil and pull quickly. You want to rip it off. With foil, there's going to be some imperfections. You'll notice that it almost has a distressed look to it. This screen print is going to hold up nicely and won't ever peel off the shirt. However, it does start to tarnish a little bit and lose some of its brightness the more you wash it. This foil and ink combo, done properly, should hold up 20 plus washes. I would recommend washing it inside out on a delicate cycle and then hang dry to extend the longevity of the foil. If you want to add an accent of foil to your screen printing, you can combine water-based ink and this stretch Plastisol ink together. For this shirt, I started using Speedball's opaque emerald ink. I print this just like usual and use my heat gun to dry the ink. Once it's good and dry, I'll use a different screen to add part of the design I want for the foil. I'm using the Plastisol stretch ink again. Then dry the ink with your heat gun. And we're ready to take it to the heat press. Since the green ink is water-based, the foil is not going to stick to that part. This gold will only stick to the stretch ink. After it's cooled and I peel off the foil, you can see how the gold stuck to the smiley face and not to the lettering. This is a fun way to add accents of foil to part of your design. Now it's time to clean up our screen. With the Plastisol ink, it doesn't wash off with water. Instead, I'm using this Plastisol cleaner, which I will link below. Just spray this all over your frame and start scrubbing. I found it works best with some towels underneath the screen and scrubbing from the top. I will say this spray has a strong odor, so I do prefer to use this outside or with an open window. It takes some work and a good bit of the solution, but eventually you'll have a clean screen. I've got a hack that will help with this cleanup. If you use a speedball screen for your project, you can flip it over and pull the cording out of your frame and remove the mesh. I did this project on an older screen and it was about time to replace the mesh anyways, so I'll just toss this mesh with vinyl still attached and I'll just use a new piece of mesh on the frame. This isn't the most economical way to do it if you're using Plastisol ink often, but for occasional projects like this, it's saved me a ton of time.
I hope you enjoyed learning how to screen print with foil. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next video. Happy crafting!